Hi boys and girls, it's Miss Tolly and I'm back and I'm going to finish reading chapter 1 of our new chapter book, The Penderwicks. So we left off halfway through chapter 1, and chapter 1 started out just kind of introducing us to the characters, and it's some little girls, their big dog, and their dad, and they are trying to find their new vacation house. So that is where we are at now. So let's go ahead and get started. A few moments later, they were turning onto Stafford Street, and then suddenly Mr. Penderwicks stopped the car in the middle of the road, and everyone stared in amazement. What had the family expected from a rental cottage? A cozy little tumble-down house with a few pots of geraniums in the front yard? Even Harry the Tomato Man's news hadn't changed that. If anyone had thought about it at all, they'd figured snooty Mrs. Tifton lived in a cottage next to theirs and grew vegetables in carefully guarded garden plots. That's not what they saw. What they saw were two tall, elegant stone pillars with number 11 carved across one and Arundel across the other. Beyond the pillars was a lane winding off to the distance, with double rows of tall poplars on either side. And past the poplars was a beautifully tended lawn dotted with graceful trees. There was no house in sight. "Holy bananas," said Skye. "Cottages don't have front yards like this," said Rosalind. "Daddy, are you sure you remembered the right address?" "Pretty sure," said Mr. Penderwick. He turned the car and started slowly down the lane, which wandered on and on until the Penderwicks thought they would never reach the end. But finally there was one last curve. The poplar trees ended, and Rosalind's fears were realized. "Daddy, that's not a cottage." "No, I agree. That's a mansion." And so it was, a huge mansion crouching in the middle of formal gardens, built from gray stone. It was covered with towers, balconies, terraces, and turrets that jutted every which way. And the gardens! There were fountains and flowering hedges and marble statues, and that was just in the part the Penderwicks could see from the lane. The exhausted travelers saw before them a dwelling fit for kings. "Cair Paravel, El Dorado, Camelot," said Jane. "Too bad we're not kings," said Skye. "We're still lost," said Rosalind, discouraged. "Buck up, Rosie," said Mr. Penderwick. "Here comes someone we can ask." A tall teenage boy pushing a wheelbarrow had appeared from behind a large statue of Cupid and Venus. Mr. Penderwick rolled down his car window, but before he could call out to the boy, a familiar gagging sound came from the very back of the car. "Hound's going to barf," shrieked Batty. The sisters knew the drill. In a flash, they flew out and around the back of the car and dragged poor Hound over to the side of the lane. He threw up on Jane's sneakers. "Oh, Hound, how could you?" moaned Jane, looking down at her yellow high tops. But Hound had already wandered off to inspect a bush. "This isn't as bad as the time he ate pizza out of a garbage can," said Skye. Betty crouched down to inspect the mess. "There's the map," she said, pointing. "Don't touch it," Rosalind exclaimed. "And Jane, stop shaking your sneakers. You're splashing it around. Stand still, everyone, until I get back." She ran over to the car for paper towels. The teenager with the wheelbarrow had come over to the driveway, and Mr. Penderwick had gotten out of the car and was talking to him. "I see there's some Linnea borealis here along the drive. Odd place for it, but I'm particularly interested in Cyparidium aratineum." These are big words. "If you know of any good places to hunt for it." "It likes swampy land, some shade." Rosalind ducked her head into the back of the car and rooted around the luggage. Her father was talking in Latin about plants, which meant he was happy. She hoped he remembered to ask the boy about directions, too. He looked nice, that boy, 18 or maybe 19 years old, with light brown hair sticking out from under a Red Sox baseball cap. Rosalind peered around the car and sneaked a look at the boy's hands. Her best friend Anna always said that you could tell a lot about people from their hands. The boy was wearing gardening gloves. The paper towels were behind Mr. Penderwick's computer and under a soccer ball. Rosalind grabbed a bunch and rushed back to her sisters. Jane and Skye were peeling leaves on top of Hound's barf. "Remember when he ate that lemon cream pie off the Geiger's picnic table? He really puked that time," said Skye. "What about when he stole a whole meatloaf out of the refrigerator? He was sick for 2 days," said Jane. "Shh," said Rosalind, wiping Jane's sneakers clean. Mr. Penderwick and that boy were walking over. "Girls, this is Cagney," said Mr. Penderwick. "Hi," said Cagney with a big smile. He slipped off his gloves and stuck them in his jeans pocket. Rosalind looked hard at his hands, but they were just regular old hands to her. She wished Anna were there. Cagney, these four are my pride and joy. The one with blonde hair is my second daughter, Sky. Blue sky, blue eyes, said Sky, opening wide her blue eyes to demonstrate. That's how you can remember which one she is, said Jane. Blue eyes and straight blonde hair. The rest of us have identical brown eyes and dark curly hair. People get me and Rosalind mixed up all the time. They do not. I am much taller than you, said Rosalind, painfully aware that not only was she holding balmy paper towels, she was wearing her shirt with Wildwood Elementary School across the front. Why had she worn it? She didn't want people to think she was still in elementary school. She was going to start 7th grade in September. Yes, well, the tall one is Rosalind, my oldest. The short one is Jane, and Mr. Penderwick looked around him. Over there, said Jane, pointing to the orange and black wings sticking out from behind a tree. And that's Batty, the shy one. Now, troops, good news. This is the right place after all. Cagney's the gardener here at Arundel Hall. That's what this mansion is called, and he's been expecting us. Our cottage is at the back of the estate grounds. It used to be the guest cottage for the main house at Cagney, back in the days when General and Mrs. Framley were alive. It's quieter here now with Mrs. Tifton in charge. Mrs. Tifton, exclaimed Jane, and would have said more if Rosalind had not dug an elbow into her ribs. Okay, girls, let's be off, said Mr. Penderwick. And Cagney, let's have that talk about the native flora sometime soon. Yes, I'd like that, said Cagney. Now, to get to the cottage, take that driveway up there on the left and follow it past the carriage house and into the formal gardens. You'll see the sunken garden to your left and the Greek pavilion to your right, and then you'll drive through the boundary hedge. The cottage is a few hundred more yards along. It's yellow, you can't miss it, and the key is under the mat. Rosalind rounded up Batty, Sky fetched Hound, and soon everyone was in the car ready to go, except for Jane. She was standing in the driveway staring up at Arundel Hall. Rosalind leaned out the window. Jane, come on. Jane reluctantly turned away from the mansion. I thought I saw a boy in that window up there. He was looking down at us. Sky leaned across Batty, flattening her, and looked out Jane's window. Where? Up there, said Jane, pointing. Top row, on the right. No one's there, said Sky. Get off me, said Batty. Sky settled back into her own seat. You imagined him, Jane. Maybe. I don't think so, said Jane, but whether I did or not, he's given me a good idea. And that is the end of chapter 1. I will start chapter 2 tomorrow, and it is called A Tunnel Through the Hedge. I hope you're really enjoying this book so far, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.